Can you hear me? I can use the microphone. You can hear me. Can you hear me? How about now? Is that good? For those of you that don't know me, my name is Abby and I work here at the library. And we just want to reflect for a moment. This program started with Anna's vision as a volunteer in April of 2023, and it's brought such wonderful things for our community to hear from our local artists. This year, additional support was provided by funding from the Arts Council and the library. So what an awesome thing. All of our artists that have participated have volunteered their time to create the lectures and display their work in the library. And I just want to speak for a moment about what the library may be facing in the coming year. This is a time of austerity for us. It's also a time to remember what our values are as a community and that we can make things like this happen with a vision. So even though we may be facing some budget cuts through the California state library system, we're going to make things happen. So we do have a letter. We do have a letter written by a Fresno County librarian this past week, and we would love for you to sign it as a patron. Some of our staff members have had a chance to sign it today. We're going to be sending this to our state senator, Marie Alvarado Gil, and this is just to reflect concern about what may be a 50% budget cut to the funds that are used to send our hold requests. And sorry, I'm getting like choked up. So that we are part of the San Joaquin Valley Library System, which is the largest consortium in the state, and as you know, contains a lot of rural library patrons. So we're really reliant on the transportation of books between our 100 branches. So if you care to sign this, please do, or write your own letter, but just to show that we care and that we benefit from the books that we receive. So another way that you can support the library is through our Zip Book grant. So each of you has a form on your chair, and this is a wonderful program. It's grant funded, and it's an opportunity for you to choose books that you want to see on the shelf that reflect your interests. And the only requirements are that it's something published within the last 10 years, not already in our county's collection. It can be within the consortium, and under $50. So it's a great way to get more books on the shelves without coming out of our library budget. We have to spend the money by the end of June. So tell a friend. You can request up to 2 books a month. So please use the forms you have, request more if you need them, take extras to pass out to your family members.
And what happens after you fill out the form?
Thank you. So after you fill out the form, the book is shipped directly to your home address, and you have 3 weeks to read it before it becomes part of the library's collection. So, and if you feel like 3 weeks isn't enough, you can request to renew it. But again, it's kind of exciting to receive a present in the mail like that. So please take advantage of it, because at the end of June, whatever is left, we have to return to the grant funder. So just one more major gratitude to Anna Friedland for organizing this series. And also to Phyllis Becker. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Abby. She's such a good speaker. Okay, welcome to the final lecture of this season of Foothill Arts Lectures. After the lecture, please stick around to fill out an end of season survey. I created some questions. It's really short, be really helpful to get your feedback. And then before we begin, please check that your devices are on silent. Or do not disturb. All right. This series was developed to reconnect members of our community, celebrate artists' accomplishments, highlight our local artists, and bring enriching perspectives and stories into our lives. This is a Mariposa County Library program, and it is supported by the library, Mariposa County, and the Mariposa Arts Council. As this is the end of the season, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the library, the funders, the lecturing artists, and all of you for your support. All of our efforts have made this program possible. Thank you. Ceramicists are some of the most generous people you'll ever meet. They will share everything with others, their knowledge, their time, art, energy, clay, and food. They are deeply tied to humanity and our collective existence. Phyllis is one of these people. Self-described as a village potter, she is not interested in the commercial aspect of a working artist, always having focused on functional pottery. She makes what people might enjoy using in their homes. Phyllis says, I like knowing that people might reach into their cupboards for a mug or soup bowl that I've made, and using that pot brings a little handmade beauty into their daily lives. Education has always been a focus for Phyllis. She loves working with children, allowing them to experience clay in a playful, creative, and often whimsical way, while helping them learn about the origins, history, and place of pottery in the world. Phyllis has taught hundreds of children throughout the county the art of clay through the Mariposa County Arts Council's Artists in the Schools program. I have had the pleasure of working with Phyllis and witnessed how she also changes the lives of adults through clay. She helps her students get out of their heads, be present with the clay, and enjoy the possibilities of making. There is not one way to do anything, and perfectionism is not the goal, which is a very humanist approach. She encourages exploration with childlike abandon, especially when making clay stamps and textures out of found objects. The experience of focused making is therapeutic for adults, and it's even changed the course of one person's lives. Working with our hands and the earth is a deeply human activity. Making vessels for eating, drinking, and sharing creates bonds within the community. If you think about your favorite handmade mug or bowl, I'm sure that you can relate to this. As we enter the hyper-digital age, the humanity of pottery is super refreshing. We need these human activities more than ever. Interacting with real materials and real people will keep us healthy and grounded. Thank you, Phyllis, for creating art that we love using every day, and for sharing your love of clay and humanity with Mariposa. We're so lucky to have you. Please give a round of applause for Phyllis Becker.
Thank you. She said it all. She did. I mean, she got to the heart of it. She got to the heart of why I do it, why artists do this work, because it matters. Okay. From the seashore to the foothills, it did all start when I came from the ocean part of the world. To the foothill. First, we have to know, to appreciate art, one must be curious. Curiosity leads to understanding, which leads to knowledge and a sense of caring. Indeed, it is what is required for all people, culture, and the whole earth. So we'll start with a little family. I was born in San Francisco, and my mother's father came from a very large family. Everybody was born in the city. And this picture is just kind of fun. This is my great aunt Loretta, who in 1915 was the queen of the Pan America Exposition in San Francisco, celebrating the opening of the Panama Canal. My kids just said, "Oh, we have royalty in the family." Anyway, it was just kind of fun. And so I grew up coming to Yosemite as a kid on vacation. You can tell. And you can't see this very well, but that's actually the tunnel tree. when it was still standing. Ben Lomond, Santa Cruz Mountains. And I have a brother and an older brother and a younger sister. So I included this at the last minute because in 1985, I was at Merced College and I was taking an art for children class in my degree for early childhood. And we were asked to make a pictorial narrative of our life. So here it is, San Francisco, where I was born. Next stop when I was 15, Carmel, where it all begins, and I'll get there. So pots are there, 3 daughters, moved to Cafes Valley, and did the whole, have goats, chickens, ducks, etc. Had raised owls, raised a baby squirrel, taught children. Oh, went to lots of ballets. So that was my little life snapshot. And there is a pottery wheel, of course. So before we get to where it all started again, my mother's brother was an artist. So, I often thought about where did my desire to create art come from? And I like to think Uncle Bob had something to do with that. Unfortunately, he died very young. He was 29, but he went from San Francisco to New York. He was a sculptor. He corresponded and was friends with Mark Rothko. He was going somewhere, but unfortunately, he didn't get to. So, Bob, here I am doing my part. So, I'm going to start with a little history. This is Eileen Osborne Webb. And she was a very wealthy woman in her own right. And she married into the Vanderbilt family. Well, she was a woman who said, if you are wealthy, if you are a person of means, you need to do something important and good. And she dove into what she felt was important, which was crafts in America, developing the art of crafts and giving it what she felt was the respect it deserved. So she created, with the help of others, of course, American Craft Council, ultimately the World Craft Council. Craft Horizons was the first publication, came out in 1941, and the first national conference of the American Crafts Council, I'm kind of pleased to say, was in Pacific Grove, California in 1957. So that was in my neighborhood, albeit I wasn't there. So I have a great deal of respect for her. She rubbed shoulders with very influential people, Eleanor Roosevelt among them. So getting to early influences in this country, there was Shoji Hamada, who was he's a national treasure from Japan, and Bernard Leach, who was a British, but he was born in Hong Kong, but he spent a lot of time in Japan, and he and Shoji Hamada became a team. And between them, they brought the aesthetics and sensibilities of the East and the West together, British pottery in Japan and Japanese in America. They traveled around, they did workshops, and they really lit the fire for studio pottery in America in the 50s and 60s and beyond. This is a Bernard Leach bowl. It's a humble bowl. They practice what they described as Menge pottery, which is a folk tradition, a village potter like me. I like to consider myself, I would have been part of that movement. So simple, elegant, not, what do I want to say? You can understand what they are. They're bowls to be used. They're decorated, but simply. And then moving on, I want to mention too, Eileen Osborne Webb was also part of the movement towards the crafts in universities, where and a lot where World War II veterans were coming back and they were taking classes, not just for their therapeutic value, but for jobs. You know, they were learning a skill that could go into industry. And so it was all part of a movement of recognizing the value of handicrafts. So the first World Congress of Craftsmen was at Columbia University, and Anna touched on this. The arts provided something soulful in a world of machines and technology. In 1964, they recognized we need this. So some influences going on at the time that I was aware of. This is Beatrice Wood, who was known for her lusters and kind of garish, outlandish, a bit of pottery. She was also a woman who was part of the Dada movement. She was hooked up with Marcel Duchamp. And Peter Voulkos, who was also breaking barriers at the time. People forget that he was a very proficient thrower, but he started breaking through into what he felt was the constraints of previous traditions. Okay, so in 1969, after I had graduated from high school in 1968, I happened upon a pottery class through the adult school of the Carmel Unified School District. And I took that class, and I took it on and off for 10 years, between 1969 and 1979. And I learned to hand build. I learned how to throw on a kick wheel and a pedal-driven stand-up wheel. I learned how to glaze by dipping and pouring and spraying. I learned about firing, reduction atmosphere in a gas kiln, and I learned about raku, which was just really coming to be at that time. Meeting all kinds of folks who loved clay. I mean, the class was a fascinating bunch of folks, just like you all. I mean, you know. So there was someone who became a good friend who was a librarian at the Hopkins Marine Station. There was a fellow who was a photographer for National Geographic. And there was also a fascinating woman who was a scientific illustrator. So one of the teachers that I remembered real well is George Sanders. And he was the son of a well-known potter from San Jose State, Herbert Sanders, who was kind of well-known for crystalline glazes. And Bernard Leach actually came and did a 6-week workshop at San Jose State in the 60s, 1963. No, not Bernard Leach, Shoji Hamada, or maybe both of them, but I think it was Hamada because he was here. He had done 100 parts of Shoji Hamada at the Dion, and it was during that year. I've been reading so much lately, I kind of get my timelines a little mixed up. Okay, so here's the Carmel Adult School, which if you know Carmel at all, you might know of the Sunset Center where the Bach Festival takes place. Well, there's a basement. And I love it, you know, the traditions of potters learning their craft in basements. Dark, musty, dusty. Well, I got to be one. So this is actually, I was back for my 50th high school reunion. And my girlfriend and I said, come on, I want to go see if it's still there. And sure enough, I took this picture through the window. They were getting ready for a sale. Same wheels, same everything. You see, back into the depths. So it's still there, and I was real happy to see that. 50 years later. And these are some of the bowls that I made early on. I think these are around 1973, 74. And you can kind of tell the Bernard Leach influence had on me. Kind of the same. These are pieces that were done in Carmel. So those very, very early pieces. I don't have too many of them. This is a peacock effect of a matte glaze over a gloss glaze. So that was 10-year period. So in 1979, moved to Cafes Valley and met the Huebners, who were potters. Isn't that cool? Pleased me. However, I did not make pots for 10 years. From 1979 to 1989, I was raising children, getting involved in the school, and growing a garden, milking goats, you know, those kinds of things. But in 1989, I started going to Merced College, and I took every credit class there was, and there was a bunch of us, and the department head was getting requests for more classes, so they would create classes so we could keep going. Well, eventually it ran out, and then it was through community service. So every Monday night for pretty near 30 years, I went to Merced College and met the most fabulous group of potters and artists, and Mendershausen, Suzanne French, Bill Gossett, his mom, Sharon. Oh, the list goes on. I mean, it was just a fabulous group of people to work with, to be with. Talk about generosity. We had the best time. So these are a couple of pieces from that period. We had a group project where we made these totems, and they were out in the campus somewhere for a period of time. And we got these, I got this design from an Ernst Haeckel book of those wonderful illustrations that he did. And I love octopuses to this day. Texture, I dove right into texture. I mean, pretty much everything I do has some kind of texture on it. Those bowls, we've seen those before. Stacked up. So these are glazes that were done in a gas kiln at the college, which I understand is not there anymore. But I learned a lot. I am not a glaze technician. Ann Mendershausen taught a glaze calculation class one time. Honest to goodness, I couldn't do it. My brain did not work like that. Of course, I probably didn't work very hard. I needed a tutor. But these are glazes from that time at the college. Kind of fun. This glaze is called Bunze's Blue, named after Dale Bunze from Columbia College. That glaze was called Fallout. That's a batter bowl. Boxes. These are all raku pieces. So raku is a type of firing where it's done quickly up to about 1800 degrees. Usually it's a kind of kiln that drops over the top of a shelf where all the pieces are. A pulley, pull it up. You grab those pieces with tongs. You put them into receptacles with combustibles, pop them in, put a lid on, and then it reduces the oxygen in the container and creates these fabulous metallic finishes. The only downside is after a while, the metallic turns green, kind of goes green like a penny. Okay, so if you went to the Mendershausens, I'm sure they talked about the ceramic boat race. That's a ceramic boat. So we had an engineer in our class for a time, and this is actually 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. And yes, it did crack in the kiln, so it's got a whole lot of Bondo on it. But it floated. He said, you're small enough, get in it, you can do it. This is down in Snelling. It's called Dry Creek. Most of the boats were, little things. I made a fish once that went belly up because you can't try them out before you put them in the water. Okay, Merced College period, I met Jamie Brzezinski, who was the department head at that time, and his wife, Judy Pittman, who was a fabulous artist. And one of the things that she got involved in was mosaic. And she was commissioned to do the Multicultural Arts Center. If you've seen the mosaic design mural on the front of the building, my friend Tiffany Newberry and I were invited to help. And it was a fabulous learning experience, how to cut and place tiles. She had all the designs spread out, and then we just filled them in. And it was great fun. I learned how to do it. I even did a little bit of mosaic in my kitchen because I could do it then. So that was a fun project. Okay, on to when you travel, your eyes just pick up what you're interested in. And we were at the Pergamon. I misspoke where this was. This is at the Pergamon in Berlin. And this is the Ishtar Gate. And it was reconstructed. It was originally built in 659 BC, the Gate of Babylon, but they're clay. That's the point. And just, I'm fascinated by anything design and color, Australian piece there. This is I think this was at the Bauhaus. These are very, very small, but I love jars. I love anything with a lid. These are called eggshell porcelain. Very light. Didn't pick them up, but I know they are. This is in Nuremberg. This was a wonderful co-op workshop. This woman was working on faience. Those jars with the bird lids, so fabulous. This is at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and these are replicas, reproductions of Minoan pots. And I love them because they have octopuses in them. We just went to Mexico City. And these are some pieces from their Museum of Archaeology. I have lots of them. I could have put so many. But here's a few. All right, on to, I always have my eyes peeled for texture. I love texture. So this was a gate, I think, at the Max Planck Institute in Berlin. It's a mushroom from Warren Canyon in the east side. Cottonwood, iron-bearing rock. It's just good stuff. Okay, and it really is all about the texture and form. This little bowl has a seaweed texture. So where do I get my textures? So I'm always looking for pieces of lace or anything that I can press into clay. And once upon a time I was in San Francisco, and there's a fabric store there that's been there for decades called Britex. And I walked in and I asked where the lace and eyelet went up to the third floor or whatever, and I had so much of it, but you couldn't touch it. It was behind the counter and you had to point. And I wanted to feel it. I wanted to see if it would work, you know. But anyway, I ended up buying some, and has served me well. So as you can see, these things lend to this. So these start out as flat slabs. The lace is rolled in, and then at glaze time, iron oxide is rubbed on and glaze.
So then you can clean and reuse that lace?
Oh, yes, over and over and over and over and over and over. Yes, yes, yes. Because it's just pressed in, rolled in, and then pulled off. So it has it on the lid. Little trays, which are useful little trays. People like little trays. Nancy Biskovich took these pictures. She helped a lot. So these are thrown forms. They're not round. We call them altered. So they're thrown without a bottom so that you can alter the shape into squares or ovals. And then I can make a slab with texture for the lid, because it's all about the texture. And I love feet, handles and feet. And butter dishes. I learned how to make butter dishes from somebody. I don't watch a lot of YouTubes, but this was one that, because I really wanted to make butter dishes and I hadn't found one that really satisfied me. So these are thrown and they're really fun to make. I like the challenge of a butter dish. This texture is done with, you know, one of those zesters, the little tool that has the sharp little holes. Great tool. Used it a lot. That one has the impression of elderberry. So there's elderberry down by the creek. And so I make stamps, and I think I have a picture of them coming up. I like reptile creatures, unspecified species of lizard. And I use the lace to make them look lizard-like. So these are some of the things I use. Sequoia cones and rocks. And this is one of my favorite. I have several of these. That's a walnut hull, dried up. Roll it on the clay. It's great. Seashells are wonderful, urchins. The seaweed has to be wet when you make a stamp out of it. Otherwise, it's good for it firing. So there's the elderberry right there. You can see. These are made with a spring dragged through the clay. These are all bisque fired, meaning they've been fired once, so they're porous and you can use them again and again. Flowers from succulents. You know, anything you can press into clay. So these are stamps that can be used over and over and over again because they're bisque fired. These are also my favorite things. This is a little, they call those holy seeds. This is a shriveled up something, I don't know, maybe a rose hip. That's a bead. That is a pot from my dogwood. And this one came from Discover, California, you know, that place by Disneyland. I was standing there with my kids, and this was a little pot off a kind of a bottle brush, one of my favorites, beads. So you roll them onto the clay. More of my texture tools. These are PVC pipe with glue gun. You can make designs on the PVC, so then it makes an impression. These are bisque rollers made out of seaweed, made from seaweed and other things pressed in. Rocks, bark, you know, whatever. Here's an example of a slab platter with that lace rolled into the rim. I think that's that little dogwood. That's a wood bead. That's my walnut hull. This is made from a piece of wood Barry and I would camp up in on the east side in Warren Canyon. And it was an old logging camp up there. And there was a beautiful little old weathered piece of wood that was just fabulous. And I've used it a lot. So again, texture rolled in. So yes, I throw on the wheel, but making things out of slabs is really fun. Here's one of my absolute very favorite things to texture that I discovered. This is sidewalk chalk. And it's soft. You can carve it really easily with little carving tools, and it doesn't stick to the clay. You just roll it, and then it creates a relief. I've used this a lot. Cheap too. Okay, I'm gonna have to tell you what this is. So there was a couple of petrified frogs in my studio, and they were just too cool. So I pressed them into the clay and disked them. And I didn't do it really appropriately. I mean, I didn't glaze it appropriately, but this one, here's the frog and there's his legs right there. And here's another one and see his little legs right there. It's not very good. I should have done it differently, but anyway, you can use anything. That's the point. Okay, these are done with colored slip, meaning clay that's been colored with stains. And let me back up a minute. I haven't told you about my education. I went to Merced College. I took every class there was. And then I just took workshops and I learned from other people. Lots of workshops and lots of exposure and just trying stuff. So I went to a workshop with a wonderful artist from, I think, Corona del Mar. Is that by San Diego? Her name is Lana Wilson. And she did these fabulous pieces with colored slip. So I tried it too. So she would layer all these colored slips on, again, a flat slab of clay. And then she would drag texture through. So a credit card, you can cut little notches out and drag it across the clay. Inside, outside. So these have not been fired yet. And then that's what they look like with the clear glaze. Just makes that color come right through. Start with the clay that I used here is a fires out white. So far, all the clay. That too. Kind of landscapey-ish pieces. So I had fun with the colored slip. More with pulling through. These are all slabs. So what do you do with, after you've cut your template out of your slab of clay that has all the colors on it and you've cut them out, you've got all these leftover pieces, right? So I cut them into strips and inlay them or make little trays. You know, little trays are so useful. More colored slip. People were asking for things with more color. You know, I come from a background of a lot of brown pots. But I love the brown pots. But people like color, so I really used a lot of colored slip for a while. These little vases are fun. You can carve them, put wax on, color them again, and wipe it off. These are little teacups. When I left my work at Head Start, we had an annual tradition of a tea party with the kids, so I made them a little tea set to have. So these are slab pieces. There's that wonderful little, I better not lose this pod because I've never seen another one. But it makes this cool thing. And that little wood bead with the grooves in it, roll it around, does that. More slabs. I like to make hollow handles. You know, I sewed a lot. Had 3 daughters, and I sewed for them a lot. And there's a lot of similarity between fabric and a slab of clay, a flat piece of clay, because of the forms you can make. You can dart clay and bring it in. So they relate to each other. So often when I make handles on a slab piece, I'll make the handle out of a flat piece of clay there. Rather than making a coil or pulling it, I'll make it out of a flat piece, and then it has a seam in it that relates to its formation. Okay, these, so remember little boxes that I make? Well, boxes lend themselves to houses. And these are little candle houses. They have trays, but the the bottom of the house has a hole in it so you could put a candle on the tray. And they were great fun. I only have a couple of those around. But that's what they look like, glazed up. They're really fun. People call them fairy houses. These are just more covered jars. This is what they look like in the greenware stage, so before they've been fired. Again, there's that lovely zester horizontal, zester vertical, lace lids, and feet. This is what it looks like when I'm just about ready for a kiln load. And I think that was an Art Trails event. I've done Art Trails, I think, 7 years. And that's my studio through that door. And I just thought I'd show you what it looks like before it goes in the kiln. So glaze has been dipped, and then other glaze has been brushed on, and then that's what it looks like out of the kiln. More jars. That's Reva. She was helping me. And there's some brown pots because I like brown pots. You know, pictures always make the handles look really big. They're not really that big. That would be too big. They're not that big. These are pots that live at Tracy's house. So I cut apart, you know, that lace that I roll out on, so you can cut pieces out and add them on. And that's an oval jar with feet. And this was a platter. Anna was asking me about this, and this is made with without a bottom. So you throw it on the wheel without a bottom, and then you can shape it into a oval, square, whatever, and then add a bottom to it. And it really works quite well. You know, clay has a memory, and it wants to be round, and so when you're shaping it, it keeps its nice curvature. As opposed to, Anna was asking if you made it from a slab, then you'd have to bring the edges together, and it would just, I mean, you can do it. This is done with a texture with a sure form. And I've made many, many of these little tiny jars that are kind of useful for condiments and sugar and salt and things like that. And they're fun to make. Or this is a bead that's rolled around on there. That carved chalk did that. A bead did that. These are faceted, so meaning slices off with a cheese slicer wire. That's what it looks like when you're unloading the kiln and getting ready to take them somewhere. I made bird houses for Habitat for Humanity bird auction. Those were fun. I'd never done that before. This one's thrown and faceted. That one was done with a slab. And I had a friend say that birds actually nested in them. More texture with mugs. Oh, there's the octopus. These are kind of whale tail handles. Those are hollow handles. And more lizard forms. And these are pots from Tracy's house. And this is a piece from, we have a little place in Monterey. And that painting is Honolulu's. She did that for me for my hutch that was missing a mirror, and I decided it needed something beautiful. So I like to emphasize, yes, it has an otter, I know. I like to emphasize that pots are to live with and to use. I mean, I do have pots in a cabinet, I will admit. You know, ones that are old and I don't want anything to happen to them, but pots are meant to be used, and we have used and broken many regularly. So it's what they're for. And I feel quite honored to be able to make pots for people in my community, because it keeps me connected to you when I think about you using them. And you know, when I buy art, I really prefer to buy art from a person who I have met. So you have a relationship, and they know where their piece of art is going, and you have met them and hopefully learned how they did it. Boxes, I went through a period where I made lots of boxes. It was Merced College, somebody, I think it was Suzanne, learned how to make boxes from a template. We had all these different shapes of template, and we made lots of boxes. And they're fun. They're really fun. So I'm going to show you how I did it. So texture the clay first, lay a template, cut it out. You see that's a sequoia cone. Yeah. And then you bring the edges together. Just score the edges, slip, bring them together, seal them up. And then this is the bottom, which will go there, but it actually gets turned over. So this is the bottom, not the top. And then you cut the lid out of the was bottom. Okay, working with children, which is the main thing I do, actually. I mean, I taught preschool for many, many years, and I love teaching art with them. One of my favorite things I remember, because 3 and 4-year-olds, we didn't do a lot of clay work. I mean, they did Play-Doh, let's be honest. But I did bring clay in one time, and we were doing something about the moon. So I made a big round slab of clay, and I let them throw things on it to create the craters. They love that. I think they even got to stand on a chair or something and throw things down on the clay to create the craters. And then I made a mono print, and we made lots of murals. So there was this night sky. It was really cool. Anyway, these are my grandchildren. And we have this big front room with a concrete floor, which makes it ideal for doing just about anything. So we had lots of paint. We had music playing, and they were having a great time. These are bags, stocking bags full of popcorn or beans or something dipped in clay. Oh, and there's Oliver. Okay, I have to segue into, so I sew, and I got into making these little fairy creatures, and I made hundreds of them. This was about, I want to say 15 years ago, maybe 20. Yeah, 20. 2005. It's now 2025, right? Okay, 20 years ago, I was making these little fairies, and they were just a lot of fun. So I did that too. And teaching children, so dear Rosie Nyogi, she made this little thing, and I love it so much that I had to include it. So I think she calls it Little Sunshine Girl, but she took so much care with this. It's a separate little doll, and that blanket is separate, and she glazed them all separately, and it's just fabulous. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
So these are just some of the kids' work. We did masks at one of the schools. It was fifth graders, mostly fifth and sixth graders. We did all kinds of projects. I could fill this slideshow up with kids' pots. But this is what they looked like in the kiln. They were coming out. This was a project down at the Sierra Foothill Charter School. They were studying Greek mythology, so they all picked a god of some kind, and the janitor down there did this amazing frame so that they could be displayed. It's so impressive. But aren't those amazing? So I just brought them a square tile, a slab that I cut out for them, and they did all this work, and they worked so hard. They're fabulous. Grandchildren again in my studio. Kid pots. Outside.
These are
They,
community members. Like
pardon?
this wasn't a class. These are just community kids.
Yeah, I
who came
teach a
over.
Sunday class,
Okay.
so we always do as much art as we can squeeze in. So we do. Actually, they've been bugging me to do some clay work, so we definitely will. And this is at Hanalur's house, who has been generous enough to provide us with a pit to fire in. She digs it, she bails it out when it rains, she builds fires in it to dry it out, and she invites us all to come and put our pieces in it. And it's just so much fabulous community fun. So we bring pots that have either been bisqued or sometimes not, and we put them in the pit with combustibles of all kinds, chips and sawdust and twigs and seaweed and donkey dung and what else? Lots of stuff. And let the magic work. So there we are, getting ready, and that's what it looks like when it's ready to be unloaded. So you can see the pieces here. There's a metal can that was used as a sagger, so if you had some special materials you wanted to have an influence on your piece, you could put it in a box called a sagger, and then has its own environment inside it, isn't influenced by what's on the outside. So there's some seaweed being attached with copper wire. Copper wire makes the black line. I think that's ferrous chloride. Yeah. So that's the before and that's the after. And that's an after.
So you let that fire all burn all the way out till it's cold and to reheat?
That's right, that's right. So we fire it up, let it burn all night, and then hopefully by the next day, unlike a wood kill fire that goes on for days. I've been told there's two kinds of potters. There's the mud and water potters, of which I am one. And then there's the fire potters, people that just really love the fire. And we need them all. So those are pit fire pieces. They're very subtle, the colors, but they have their own beauty. There's no glaze. So these pieces, these were done in the pit, this. So Hanalura invited us out to dig special red clay from near where she lives at Whitlock Gap. And we had the best time digging and processing and wedging and making things out of this amazing clay. And I have to tell you, it's some of the best clay I've ever worked with. And so we pit fired some, those haven't been fired yet, but look at the beautiful red color. Of course, it's read. I just really, really enjoyed that process. I've never done that before. All the years I've lived here, I've never dug clay, but it was a fabulous thing. So I just want to say that the arts in our community are alive and well, and thanks to all of you who support us and come to our events, and it just is so needed, and it nourishes all of us. And I just really want to thank you all for supporting us when we have our art trails events and all the other things that go on. Just really great fun. Oops. Just, we have these sales. I haven't been working a lot lately at all, but I will be again. Artists kind of go through these waves of other things going on in their lives. This was an event, and with this was an event, and it just shows, artists coming together and having a really wonderful time. We all learn from each other, and that is the beauty of it. So that's all I have. So I am absolutely open to questions. Anybody should have any. John.
Do you still teach adults at all?
I've had a few people come one-on-one into my studio. I have a really little studio, and my kiln's in the garage, and there's a possibility for that. But I do take people more or less one-on-one. Dan.
Do you have a wow piece or a ceramic technique that led you to like an aha moment that could be related to like a universal lesson that you got from ceramics?
Wow, that's a deep question. Each technique, whether it's making a butter dish or a casserole with a lid, the aha moment is when it works, when the lid fits. When the lid comes off after it's been fired, when the handle feels right, when the cup lip feels right, when you drink out of it. All those are aha moments for a potter. Yeah.
Thanks.
Each piece. You wanted to ask something.
What are you excited about now?
What am I excited about now? This getting ready for this presentation has been very emotional for me because I've gone back in time. I've been looking at literally 1960s and 70s and 80s ceramics monthly magazines with people who I remember, and a lot of them aren't here anymore. And just the traditions and how it's growing and changing. And I don't know, I'm really excited about using some more Mariposa mud, and we'll see where that goes.
It's a wonderful thing to be excited about.
I know, it is. It's great. A little plus for the library. This book is from our library system. This, it says Tulare County Library. Our fabulous library system had this book. Okay? Yeah. I first found it when I was in Carmel at the fabulous Carmel Library. But I came home and doggone it, here it was. So, kudos.
Ooh.
Wow. Anna.
If there were a bigger space for you to teach, would you do?
Absolutely. Are you kidding? Coming together, as you know, and learning together, making pots together, or any kind of art together. It's the best. Yes, we need one. We do. In town, accessible. Yeah, we do. Jill.
You talked about how you like knowing where your pieces go. And I just want to say that I love your pieces and I love taking them out and using them and knowing that you made them. And all the textures. It's just fabulous to meet you.
That's why I do it. Okay, well, thank you all so very, very much. I appreciate every one of you. And you know, I was nervous for a little while, but then I kept saying, these are your people, these are your friends. So thank you.